Hey, how's it going, guys? Should be live now. Here to talk about, we got a nice two-game slate, Monday Night Football. So give me 1 second. Let me tweet out the stream, and then we'll jump into it. I'm going to basically be focusing on the two-game slate rather than the showdown slate. Yeah, hope you guys all had a good last couple days. It's nice that we have two games to talk about today rather than just one. So let's remember. Do you play football in the past? Oh yeah, I've always played NFL. But all right, so if you guys are new to the channel, how this works is we'll go over everything that we have so far. Jake's Anderson with the $10 Super Chat football. Let's go, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really good to have football back. I know you had a nice night or a nice day yesterday, and you had like that close to $1,000 win in the one tournament. So congrats on that, and thank you again for continuing to support the channel. But yeah, back to what I was talking about. We'll go over what we know so far. So let's look at the inactives so far for the Steelers-Giants game. Really, the one that stands out here is Golden Tate. That's what we were looking for. He was questionable. So that is somewhat significant. We're still waiting on Tennessee and Denver, a couple pieces up in the air there. And then we also have Cortland Sutton. Even though it's not confirmed out yet, he's like basically going to be out in that later game. So a couple things to really confirm on Twitter, but we should get that somewhat soon. Let's talk about the Vegas odds for this two-game slate. So a little bit of an uglier one, to be honest. We have Steelers, Giants, a 45 over under. Steelers are 6.5-point favorites. Steelers have a good defense too, so not necessarily like a game that there should be like a ton of points. And kind of the same thing with Titans, Broncos, a 41 over under. Titans are 3-point favorites, so let's talk about it, and then I'll get to questions at the end. We have a lot of time, about 45 minutes until lock, so let's talk about it. We'll start with quarterback. 4 options to choose from, obviously. Big Ben, Daniel Jones, Tannehill, and Drew Lock. I think the top 2 are probably the guys I have the most interest in Big Ben and Daniel Jones. Big Ben, I would say, is probably the safest, just because I think the matchup is the best for him going up against the Giants. Whereas Daniel Jones is a guy that has rushing upside, is a little inconsistent, but going in a much tougher spot there against Pittsburgh. He is $1,000 less, so it's a close one there. Tannehill, I will say, is probably my least favorite, just because Tennessee's a run-first offense. Not saying he's out of play, but I would probably rank him 4th. Drew Lock is going to start here for Denver. Started a few games last year, was decent. He's a guy that does have some rushing upside too. I think I would slightly prefer him to Tannehill in the late game. So would probably rank the quarterbacks, Big Ben 1, Jones 2, Lock 3, Tannehill 4. But in a two-game slate, really all 4 are playable. Like I don't think there's one that's out of play necessarily. I just think the upside is probably a little bit higher in the first game compared to the second game, where both Tennessee and Denver are run-first teams. They're going to pound the ball on the ground, whereas Pittsburgh and the Giants can air it out a little bit more. I'll try to keep an eye on chat here too. Lock and Corey Davis. Corey Davis is a guy that is playable if he does play. He's questionable. I don't think we have confirmation on that yet since the inactives aren't out. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for quarterback. If we move on to running back, there's a good amount of a place here, obviously. Saquon Barkley at 8K. I know the matchup's not good against Pittsburgh, but this is just one I'll be plugging him in and moving on. He is a guy that is basically a running back and wide receiver like Christian McCaffrey. They said they're going to try to utilize him even more in the passing game. Yeah, I think Saquon is a guy that if you're going for safety, just play him and move on. You can fade. There are other options, but I'm going to be playing Saquon, full disclosure. I think he is a guy that has probably the most upside out of anyone on the slate. And he is clearly a workhorse back as well. So all those things look good. The one downside is just the matchup against Pittsburgh, but I'm not really concerned about it because if they fall behind, he'll still be utilized a lot in the passing game. So his game flow, independent. I like Saquon a lot. Not really a strong take there, but yeah, really like him. Derrick Henry's at 7.5. The downside with him last year was he just didn't do anything in the passing game. Like he caught maybe one ball a game. They did, there were a couple comments that they're trying to utilize him more as a receiver. Derrick Henry was working to improve that. So we'll see how it goes tonight. I think that makes him slightly riskier. Like I would rather get to Saquon over Derrick Henry. I think the floor is higher due to his PPR ability. We'll see if Tennessee stays true to the word and they try to utilize Henry more through the air. Another guy that is clearly their workhorse back. And if they're playing from ahead, it's going to be give the ball to Derrick Henry basically every single play. So I like Derrick Henry a good amount. I think I do slightly prefer Saquon if you're going to make me pick. And then James Conner as well. I think he is my favorite point per dollar play on the slate. Mike Tomlin even said he is going to be their bell cow back, their 3-down back. Pittsburgh they love using one running back, and that's it. And Connor was banged up last year. They had bad quarterback play. This is a different situation with Big Ben back. Juju's now healthy too. So I love James Conner. I think he is my favorite play of the day. He's a guy that is a good pass-catching back as well. The best matchup here against the Giants, a very good price of 6.4K, and he is going to be their bell cow backs. I love James Conner. He's my favorite play. If you're going for safety on the slate, if I was playing a cash game format in this 2-game slate, I think I would play all 3 of those main backs with Saquon, Derrick Henry, and James Conner because all 3 are workhorse backs. Then we get to a slightly riskier play. So Melvin Gordon's at a playable price at 5.1. The issue is they still have other running backs. They have Philip Lindsay that will get a good amount of work. They still have Royce Freeman too. So how much work is Melvin Gordon going to get? That is the big question. So I think for that reason alone, he is a riskier option. And will they utilize him a whole lot in the passing game like they did for the Chargers? Probably not. I think those targets do go down because Philip Rivers just loved targeting his running backs. This is a different situation. So we have Melvin Gordon. We have Philip Lindsay at similar prices. If you're going to make me pick, I will go Melvin Gordon. I think the upside's a little bit higher. I think he does probably get a few extra snaps than Philip Lindsay. But really, and I think Royce Freeman still will get a few carries too. It could kind of be like a 3-headed monster. So it's a situation, it's a little bit riskier because there's no guarantee that Melvin Gordon's going to be their workhorse backs. I think Lindsay will get incorporated a good amount, and I think Royce Freeman will even get a couple carries. So Gordon is a riskier option, but he would be my preferred running back from Denver if you're going to make me pick. I don't think I consider the value here. The backups for Pittsburgh, I'm not touching. With James Conner, with Tomlin saying he's the bell cow, I'm just not going to touch the backup running backs for Pittsburgh. I'm not going to Deion Lewis with Saquon being their clear workhorse back. And I'm not playing the Tennessee backup. So it's literally, for me, the main 3 guys. I think you play all 3 in the cash games. I think you play Saquon. I think you play Derrick Henry. I think you play James Conner for safety. Those 3 are workhorse backs. The floor is high in them. I think you play all 3 for cash games. For GPPs, you can consider a guy like Melvin Gordon. You can consider a guy like Philip Lindsay. I think Royce Freeman even gets a couple carries, but he's a lot riskier option. So that's what I'm thinking for running back. I'm not even considering the backups for anyone else. Really, it's the main 3 guys and then the Denver running backs that I have interest in on this slate. Let's move on to wide receiver. There's a good amount of options here. We'll go team by team, I guess. It probably makes it a little bit easier. Let's start with Pittsburgh. Juju, their clear number 1 guy. He was banged up last year, had to deal with spotty quarterback play. Whole different situation. Big Ben's back. Even though Big Ben is getting up there in age, he's no longer in his prime. It's a lot better quarterback play than he had last year. So I like Juju. I think he is the top spend up wide receiver. I think he's clearly the most expensive receiver, by at least $1,200. So if you can get to Juju, I have absolutely no issues. I think he is one of these safer options. Again, this is, in my opinion, the best spot for Pittsburgh going up against the Giants. So I like Juju a good amount. I think you can definitely pair him with Big Ben. I think you can use all 3. All 3 of Juju, James Conner, Big Ben if you want to. And it's probably a safe way to go, to be honest. The other 2 receivers, Deontay Johnson is going to be the number 2. He had a nice year last year. Again, with bad quarterback play, he was pretty solid. Now we get an upgrade, 4.4K. again, he's their number 2 guy. I think he makes a pretty good value option. And then finally, James Washington. He's more the boomer bust play, but he will be their number 3 guy. He'll still get a good amount of snaps. The floor is pretty low, but he's a guy that will run those deep routes. So if Big Ben can hit him on one of those, like the upside is high. Like he'll run those routes. So James Washington's a guy I have interest for GPPs. A little bit riskier, but the upside is there. A little bit more boomer bust. Chase Claypool, it will probably get some snaps work in, maybe as a number 3, maybe take a few snaps away from James Washington. But right now it's nothing more than a dart throw for this week, so nothing I can really recommend with confidence. He has gotten good reviews in camp, but he is a number 4. I think he will get some snaps as the number 3 receiver, but a little bit too risky for me to really recommend for single entry, right? But if you're making 150 lineups, sure, you can maybe throw him in 1 or 2. So that's really it for Pittsburgh. One of the Giants. Giants is a bit tricky here. We have Golden Tate. Big news, Golden Tate out. I thought he was going to play, but looks like he will be out. So it's going to be Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton as obviously the number 1 and number 2. They have Ratley. They have CJ Board. They'll probably utilize a bit in the 3 wide receiver sets. Who's it going to be? No real clarity. If I had to guess, it probably would be Ratley over Board, but both guys probably will get some snaps. Again, nothing I can really recommend with confidence there as far as those really cheap receivers. I think it would be Ratley as the number 3 guy over Board, but not like 100% on that. With Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, I think both are pretty decent options. The Giants with no Golden Tate are a little bit thinner now, wide receiver. If you're going to make me pick between Slayton and Sterling Shepard, I think I'm actually going to give that to Shepard. He's going to move more to the slot with Golden Tate out, which I think helps his floor a bit. Like he was utilized a lot last year. Like he had like close to 10 targets almost every single game. I think him playing more in the slot does help him. So I like Shepard a good amount here, even with the, I guess, the tougher matchup against Pittsburgh. I just think his floor is pretty high for 5-2. So both Giants wide receivers are playable. I think I give the edge, though, to Sterling Shepard over Darius Slayton. And then Ratley, I'd assume, is going to be the number 3 with no Golden Tate. So you can play him, but again, nothing more than a dart throw, really. Nothing I can really recommend with confidence. Let's move on to Tennessee now. Real quick, though, we are at, I think, close to 150 viewers. If you guys enjoy the content, you enjoy the free live streams, the YouTube videos, hit that like button. It really, really helps me out. And subscribe if you haven't already. Closing in on 5K subs. Have a lot of content coming out this week. A lot. I already have an early look video for Week 2 NFL. NBA video for tomorrow's final 2-game slate is already up. We have the U.S. Open video up later tonight. We have the Showdown slate on Thursday, Browns-Bengals video coming for that. So there's a lot of content, guys. Would really appreciate it. Again, leave a like button on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's talk about Tennessee now. A.J. Brown's at 6K. He is their number 1 wide receiver for sure. He was a little bit shaky, this year, a little bit up and down due to the fact of Tennessee is clearly a run-first team. So that is the concern with Brown, is if they get off to an early lead, it's going to be a lot of Derrick Henry. 6K price point makes him interesting play. I think I would prefer getting up to Juju or maybe spending down a little bit. So he's in that price point where it's a little bit trickier. No real issue with A.J. Brown. He's a guy that is their number 1 receiver. It's just this Tennessee-Denver game, in my opinion, is going to be uglier than the first game with 2 run-first teams, 2 teams that are solid defensively, a low over-under. So Brown's a guy I don't have an issue with, but I think I would rather get to Juju for a little bit more, or maybe a couple other guys below him for less. Corey Davis is at 3-4, right now listed as questionable, dealing with a hamstring injury. If he plays, he is a cheap value option that you can definitely consider. Another guy that was not great, a little up and down, due to the fact of just Tennessee is a run-first team. So he is their number 2 receiver behind A.J. Brown. If he plays, he is certainly playable at 3-4. He'll play a good amount of the game, and it's a really, really cheap price point. If Tennessee falls behind, that would actually be good for Corey Davis. So he's playable 100% if he does play. If he's out, probably Adam Humphries gets a little bit more run. He'll be utilized a good amount in the slot. I think he's a cheaper option that is definitely playable. And And that's really it. Like, I don't know if I get to Raymond or Hollister here, even if Corey Davis is out. Like, if Corey Davis is out, I'd probably just take the shot on Humphreys at 3-5. So that's really what I think about Tennessee. I think Davis is definitely playable if he's out. Humphreys becomes a lot more viable, even though he'll be utilized more in the slot. A.J. Brown at 6K is at a tricky price point. Would prefer Juju for more. Would probably prefer a couple other guys for less. Let's talk about Denver now. So Courtland Sutton, the big news, he is now not expected to play. Not guaranteed, but don't think he's going to play, which is pretty big news because Denver is thin at wide receiver with no Sutton. He is the number one receiver. With him being out, it's the rookie Jerry Jeudy at 4-2 that should step into a really big role here. I think he's going to garner ownership, and I think it's for good reason. I have interest in him. I think he's going to be their number one guy now with Sutton out. So Jerry Jeudy certainly intrigues me. I think Tim Patrick is the guy that gets the biggest boost with no Courtland Sutton. I think he could be utilized a bit more in the slot if KJ Hamler's out, who we're still waiting on confirmation there. The rookie wide receiver from Penn State, they said he'll be utilized in the slot if he does play. So got to keep an eye on this. Like if Hamler plays, you could consider him as a dart throw if he's active. But yeah, back to Sutton. I think Tim Patrick does get the biggest boost at 3-7. So him, Jerry Jeudy, I think would be the number one, number two. Deshaun Hamilton would be utilized a decent amount too. Like those three would probably be their main three guys. If Hamler plays, it would probably be a combination of all four. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like I don't mind taking a shot on one of those Denver cheap receivers, whether it be Jeudy, whether it be Tim Patrick. I think Patrick would be the guy that's the biggest boost with no Courtland Sutton. And Sutton, surprisingly, if he does play, I like him just because he's a guy that will be utilized a whole lot there. We had a great year last year, but not looking like he's going to play. So I think it's a combination of those three guys. And Hamler, if he does play, probably will get mixed in a bit too there at min price. So there are playable wide receivers here for sure for Denver. All are cheap. Jeudy 4-2, Patrick 3-7, Sean Hamilton 3-3, Hamler 3K. I think if Hamler plays, I think all four are viable. It's just I think this game is like I would rather have more exposure to the first game than this second game. All right, let's talk about tight end now. So we'll go team by team again. We'll go Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh is a tricky one because Ebron is going to be their number one guy. He had a pretty decent year last year for the Colts. The issue is they still have Vance McDonald at 2-7. So how much work is Ebron really going to get? We don't know. They did say that he is going to be a guy that's going to be targeted a lot in the red zone, which is good. 4.3K. Like, I have interest in Ebron. My worry is they still have Vance McDonald. So, again, how much work is he really going to get? The positives, they already said, like, he is going to be the target in the red zone. And if you can just catch one touchdown, like, he's probably already going to get you value at 4-3. So, Ebron is the safer play. They'll be utilized a bit more targeted in the red zone. McDonald is still playable. Like I don't think they're going to completely phase out Vance McDonald. They will use two tight end sets a decent amount. So McDonald is the riskier play. Both are viable. If you're going to make me pick, it would be Ebron. Let's talk about the Giants. Evan Ingram's 5'4". He's a guy that's been battling injuries, seems like the last couple of years. But when he is healthy, he has huge upside. And with no Golden Tate, that's a slight boost to Ingram. Like they'll use Ingram a decent amount even in the slot. Like they don't really have to use him as a tight end. Like he will line up out wide as a slot receiver sometimes. He's obviously their red zone target too. So I like Evan Ingram. I think he's going to be popular this slate, but I think it is for a good reason. I like him a good amount at 5'4". The backup tight end, like I don't think I'm going to take a shot on Caden Smith. It's probably just Evan Ingram for me, and that's it. Move on to Tennessee. So no Delaney Walker. Jonnu Smith is now their main guy. He had, an okay year last year. It's just this issue with this Tennessee, a lot of the receiving corps is just the offense is Derrick Henry. It's get the ball to Derrick Henry. Now, if they fall behind, that's when you could see some upside here from some of these receivers. So, yeah, Jonnu Smith's playable for sure. I don't think like any of the starting tight ends are out of play. Like I would probably give the edge to Ebron at a similar price over Jonnu Smith, but not saying he's out of play. And then Denver, they have Noah Fant. He is going to be their number one guy. Not really getting him at a huge discount. Again, playable, not out of play. Jake Butt did make the team. That's like a dart throw. He was dealing with injuries the last 3 years. He was really good at Michigan. That's the reason why I know Jake Butt. He's a good receiving tight end, but how much work is he going to get, right? They'll probably ease him into it. So that's nothing more than a dart throw. And that's really it for tight ends. So, going over, I think Evan Ingram is the clear guy at 5'4", even though he's the most expensive. He just is the guy that has the most upside by far. And with no Golden Tate, I think that's a bigger boost to him. The next guy I would pick would probably be Ebron, even though they have Vance McDonald, just because, in my opinion, again, it's the best matchup for Pittsburgh going up against his Giants defense. And they said, quotes out of camp, they're going to use Ebron in the red zone. Finally, defense. For me, it's going to be one of the two teams in the late game, whether it be the Titans or the Broncos. I think the Steelers are certainly playable. They are probably the best defense, but 3-7, I think I'd rather take a shot on either the Titans or the Broncos. So I would probably rank them, let's see, Titans 1, Broncos 2, Steelers 3, and then I don't think I would even consider playing the Giants at 2-3. So that's probably how I'd rank the defenses. As far as the flex position, right, like what am I thinking? Well, again, for safety, I think you do play all three of the workhorse backs, and Saquon, Derrick Henry, James Conner. But that's for like a cash game setting, right? For GPPs, you can definitely use a wide receiver, but like start your lineup off with these three guys, I think is a very safe approach. And you can still, there's a lot of value at wide receiver. You can still get to Evan Ingram if you want to up here. Like that is the approach that I'm gonna take. Is take the safety with a guaranteed workhorse backs, and then there are value, right? There's value at wide receiver. There's a good amount of value, so I think that's a safer option. If you want to get a bit risky, like a direct pivot, I think would maybe if you want to just load up in the first game would be a guy like Juju over, maybe over a guy like Derrick Henry. So if you wanted to get a little bit riskier, that's probably the way to go. But for safety, I think it is the main three workhorse backs there at running back. All right, let's see if we got any more news. Try to refresh Twitter here, see if we got any more news on inactives. Let's see. Let me go. Give me 1 second here. Let's go to Roto World Football, see if we got anything else. Nothing yet. Yeah, again, we got the Golden Tate inactive, and that's about it. All right, let's get to some questions here. We got a lot of about 20 minutes until lock, so let's get into it. Someone give me a lineup. I don't know football at all. Patrick or Judy in cash? Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? With no Courtland Sutton, I think both look pretty good. I think the upside might be a little bit higher on Jerry Judy, but I don't have a strong take there on whether it be Tim Patrick or Jerry Judy. I guess you're going to make me pick give me Judy, and the upside might be a little bit higher, but yeah. No, Connor. Let's see. Not a huge Connor fan on this slate. You guys don't like James Conner? I'm really high on James Conner. They said he is their bell cow back. Good matchup. Again, the best matchup on the slate against the Giants. I love James Conner here. Let's see. Big Ben, Henry, Connor, Slayton, Deontay Johnson, Judy, Ebron, Barkley, and Titans D. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, as far as core goes, for me, like I said, I'm going to use both or all three of the main running backs. Like I think Melvin Gordon is playable, but he's a little bit riskier. So, not saying that's a super contrarian take, but that's the direction I'm going. So I'm going to go Saquon, I'm going to go Connor, and I'm going to go Derrick Henry. And then as far as wide receiver, I think one of Sterling Shepard or Evan Ingram. I'll go Evan Ingram because I think he has the most upside out of the tight ends by far. So that's the direction I'm going to go. Like I said, you can spend up for Juju. A.J. Brown's at a tricky price point, but he has upside if Tennessee falls behind. There's different ways you can go. It's a 2-game slate, super high variance, so don't go crazy, but that is the direction that I'm going to be going with this. I'm rolling Henry, Connor, Brown, Johnson, Judy, the Ingram, Barkley, and Steelers D. That's fine. Too risky in GPP to play all the running backs. You're asking, is it too risky? No, I think you can play all three in GPP. like I said, I think those three guys probably have the highest floor. All three are. We know Derrick Henry's a workhorse. We know Saquon's a workhorse. And Mike Tomlin said that James Conner is going to be the bell cow back. So I think plugging in all three guys is the way to go. Melvin better. Yeah, Melvin Gordon is playable. My issue is, like, if I had to pick one of the Denver running backs, it would be Melvin Gordon. They have other backs they will utilize 100%. There's no, like, Melvin Gordon is not their workhorse back. They have Philip Lindsay. They even have Royce Freeman that will get some touches. So it's going to be a running back by committee, even though Melvin Gordon will, he will get the most snaps. Benny Snell in Showdown. Yeah, I mean, for the Showdown slate, you could do it, but I don't feel good about it. With everything that I've seen so far and everything I've heard, it's going to be Connor. They're three down backs, so you can play him, but I don't feel good about it. Any love for Locke? LOL. Yeah, so Locke is a guy that, I would rather have him than Tannehill personally. He's a guy that also has he can do a little bit on the ground. I haven't seen a whole lot from him yet, so I think I do slightly prefer Drew Lock to Tannehill, but I think I'd rank him third. Like, I think it would probably be for safety, Big Ben 1, then Daniel Jones, then Drew Lock, then Tannehill. Let's see. Saquon's my favorite play of the day. Yeah, he's super, super safe. Even in a tough spot, I think Saquon is just your safest option. Like him, I would rather have, if you're going to make me pick, I'd rather have him than Derrick Henry. Now, sure, could things change? Could they utilize Henry a bit more, as a receiver? Possibly. Thoughts on Judy? I like Judy, and I like Tim Patrick with no Cortland Sutton. Both should be utilized a good amount. Judy, the rookie, in my opinion, he has that big play upside out of Bama. Like, I think he probably has the most upside, but both are playable. I think Deshaun Hamilton's playable too. Like, all three of those cheap wide receivers are in play. Hamler, if he does play, I think will utilize a bit, but he was doubtful, then questionable, so got to keep an eye on that. We're probably not going to get that news until later. The rookie there from Penn State. Who should I play at wideout 4K range? Well, there's a good amount of options, right? There really is. If you go to wide receiver, 4K, you have both Pittsburgh number 2 and number 3 receivers. And this is the best spot, in my opinion, for Pittsburgh going up against that Giants D. So both Deontay Johnson, James Washington look good. I think both the Denver receivers, and Judy, Patrick, you can even consider Deshaun Hamilton. Corey Joseph's playable Corey Davis if he's out, Humphrey. So there's a lot of options. I don't know if one really stands out more than the other in that cheap 4K range, but there's a lot of options. So mix and match if you're making multiple lineups. If you're making one, maybe go with your gut, but really I don't really have a strong take on who I prefer in these cheap wide receivers with both Pittsburgh number 2, number 3. We have the Denver guys, no Sutton. We have, Humphreys, possibly no Davis is out. Davis, if he plays, is playable 3-4. So there's a lot of cheap options you can definitely look to. Kind of mix and match would be my breakdown there. I'm rolling with Tannehill today. That a bad idea. I don't think any of the quarterbacks are out of play in this 2-game slate. I think he would probably be my least favorite, just for the fact of the offense is give the ball to Derrick Henry. Now, things could change, right? And Tannehill's a guy that can run the ball a bit. If they fall behind, that would be really good for Ryan Tannehill. If they're playing from ahead, that's when the upside is pretty low. So, again, it's Big Ben for me 1. I think Daniel Jones 2. Lock 3. Tannehill 4. MVP Trubisky, baby. Trubisky broke my heart there as a Lions fan. Typical Lions blowing the game 23-6 in the fourth quarter. I've been a diehard Lions fan my whole life, and just used to the disappointment for sure. I got Big Ben, Connor, Henry, A.J. Brown, Patrick, Juju, Ebron, and Johnson. Thoughts? Yeah, I think that looks really good. James Washington, or Patrick. Probably, I guess the safer option would be Patrick, whereas James Washington is that big play upside guy, maybe a little bit more boom or bust, right? So if you're shooting for the upside, I would say James Washington. If you're going for the safety, probably would be Tim Patrick. Does Juju have a bad matchup? No. I think Pittsburgh as a team has the best matchup overall going up against the Giants. So, no, I don't think Juju has a bad matchup. Noah Fant or Juno Smith? Yeah. That's a tricky one. I'm not like super high in either. I guess Smith, but that's not really a strong take for me. How's Tannehill, Saquon, Connor, Deontay Johnson, Judy, Shepard, Ingram, Henry, Titans D look? I think it looks good. Best wide receiver today. Juju has a spend up clearly, but he's the guy that has the most upside. As far as the mid range, I think it's going to be Sterling Shepard for me. And then the cheap wide receivers, I don't really have a strong take. There's a lot of guys in the low 4Ks, some guys in the 3Ks that are playable. So don't have a strong take there. It's clearly Juju at the top for me. And then I would say Sterling Shepard. And then there's a lot of playable guys in that cheaper range. Dumb to play no Broncos? I don't think it's dumb. I don't think you have to play a Denver player. I think the wide receivers do look a little bit better than the running backs, but yeah, I don't think I don't think you necessarily have to play someone from Denver. It's probably a little bit riskier to completely fade a team, but viable. Lived and mission my life. Bears fan all my life. All my fan family. Oh man, well you love that game then. Yeah, like I said, no real surprise that they end up blowing it. But yeah, hit me up if you guys have any more questions. Like I said, it's a trickier slate because there's no real standout value in my opinion. A lot of playable guys, so I think getting one of these cheap guys right is going to be key. And like I said, there's no real standout, so that's what makes the slate a little bit tricky. But I think this approach to start is a really really safe build. Swift, yeah, Swift dropping that pass, man, that was tough. Big Ben and James Washington or Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton. I think I'd rather have Big Ben and James Washington. How does this look, DK? Let's see. Ben, Barkley, Henry, Judy, Johnson, Patrick, Ingram, Slayton, and Steelers D. I think it's good. I have zero Giants players. I don't think you necessarily have to play the Giants. Again, I think Pittsburgh is the team that I like the best on the slate with Juju, with Big Ben, with James Conner, and then even those other receivers in Washington, Deontay Johnson. I think Pittsburgh's the team that I feel the most comfortable with. Next, it's a little bit tricky. Even though the Giants are in a tough spot, I think I like some of the guys, some of the price points in those guys with Ingram, with Sterling Shepard. McDonald season, yeah, Vance McDonald is definitely a viable punt here. Like they will utilize two tight ends a decent amount. Both are guys they can look to. They said Ebron's going to be targeting the red zone, but they'll use Vance McDonald too. So you can punt with McDonald. I don't think a lot of people get to him. If you need someone super super cheap, I don't hate that. It's a riskier play, but he's definitely viable here. DK, do you know when Flash contests start? I actually don't. Was that? I know, like, what even is the Flash contest? I saw that on DK. I'm to be honest, I don't know 100% what that is exactly. Deontay Johnson or A.J. Brown? Well, if you can get to A.J. Brown, I think he probably is the better play. But I do like Deontay Johnson is priced a good amount. He's the number 2 receiver. I think it's the best matchup on the slate for Pittsburgh, so yeah. How did you do yesterday? In NFL, I did not do great. I made my video looking back. I already had an early look video for week 2 up. My mistake was I really prioritized Christian McCaffrey last week. And with there being so many good plays in the mid-range, I think that was a mistake. I took some shots at some guys I probably shouldn't have. There were so many good plays, like that Seattle-Atlanta game. I was super high on those receivers that me like prioritizing McCaffrey and like not even thinking twice about it was definitely a mistake. So I did not have a good week 1. What are your thoughts on defense? I think one of the defenses in the late games or Pittsburgh. Like I would probably rank it's I guess how much exposure do you have to the Giants? Like for me, I actually have a decent amount of exposure to the Giants just because we have the Saquon workhorse. I think Ingram looks good. I think Sterling Shepard looks good. So I'm kind of stacking the first game. So I guess it's all about how you're approaching it. If you don't have a lot of Giants players, then you can go to Pittsburgh defense, Giants defense lock. Let's Let's see. Change my lineup. How does this look? Lock, Barkley, Henry, Judy, Johnson, Slayton, Ingram, Connor, and the Steelers. I think it looks good, right? Last minute, I took Rodgers and Adams out of my lineup. I've never felt so much regret in my life. Yeah, Adams was one of the reasons I did not cash. He was pretty popular. I liked Devonta Adams for the reason of a guy that's going to get a ton of targets. Didn't make my build because I wanted to get the workhorse running backs in, and that clearly hurt me because Devonta Adams went absolutely off. But, it's good. Like I said, guys, it's really good that DraftKings or NBA, we have one more 2-game slate. It's going to be the last 2-game slate of the year. And if you guys are interested in content for that, I do already have a video up there as well as I will be live streaming tomorrow for that. Unfortunately, we got to try to deal with the headache of Clippers and the Nuggets rotations. Yeah, another regret I had was I really liked the contrarian stack of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins week 1. I just couldn't, as a one lineup guy, I couldn't pull the trigger on it. But I mentioned it multiple times and obviously regret it because they went absolutely off. I was able to cash it out yesterday with a huge game from Wilson and Adams, even though I had Scott, Moore, and Ruggs. Yeah, Ruggs, him getting injured definitely hurt. He had a nice start. He did come back in, but he missed a decent amount of time there. And then Boston Scott, that was a play I kind of got suckered into too. It wasn't a bad play at all going up against Washington, but they utilized Clement a bit too, and then I don't know. I don't think it was a bad play, but one that I kind of got suckered into a little bit. Robbie Anderson went off. Yeah, he had that big 75-yard catch from Bridgewater that definitely salvaged his day. King Henry breaking the carries record. Yeah, he's going to be utilized a whole lot, and I'm interested to see if they stick to their word of use him more as a receiver out of the backfield. My lineup is Locke, Barkley, Henry, Juju, Judy, Slayton, Smith, tight end Connor, and Giants. Yep, I like that. Ingram and Slayton or Brown and Ebron. I think it's going to be Ingram and Slayton for me. We have lock in like 2 minutes. Any last minute questions, let me know. Looking over the week 2 slate, again, guys, I already have my video up there for the early look video. I like it a lot. There are a lot of good plays in the mid-range once again. Kyler Murray, 6.1K. Whew, I love that next week, or for week 2, I should say. There's good plays in the mid-range. There's some spent-up wide receivers like Devontae's price went up a bit, but he still looks good against Detroit's secondary. We have Hopkins again. You can definitely pair with Kyler. Slayton or Gordon as a flex. That's a tricky one. I think I would rather have Slayton, but it's close. My concern with Melvin Gordon is, even though he is their number 1 back, they're still going to utilize 2 other running backs too. I have D-Hop in 8 fantasy leagues. Yeah, love Hopkins. I mean, I've been high on Kyler Murray since he came into the NFL. Giants defense looks nice today for that price in low scoring game. If they were another high price guy I could grab, I'd play the Giants D. Giants D would be my least favorite defense. Josh Jacobs or Golden Tate. All right, but we should be closing in a lock now. Let's see. Yep, so let's go over some ownership and then I'll get out of here. I appreciate all you guys coming in to the slate here, or to the live stream. Nice that we have 2 games on Monday instead of 1. So once ownership loads in, I'll go over that and then I can get out of here. Like I mentioned a couple times, guys, a lot of content coming out. We have NBA, we have PGA. Showdown slate on Thursday. I'll have a video up for that. Let's see. Giants Steelers score could be like 13-7. Giants defense look nice at that price. I would rather, I'm stacking the first game. That's the direction that I want, just because Denver and Tennessee both run first teams, and both are like solid defensively. Went with Ben, Saquon, Henry, Judy, Johnson, Shepard, Ebron, Connor, and Broncos. I'm a Washington fan, by the way. Like Washington football team. Hey, man, that was a nice win for them. Nice comeback there. Ownership took forever yesterday for me. Yeah, it's taking forever for me now. It's out. So let's see. My lineup, I stacked the first game. So this is my lineup. I went Daniel Jones, Saquon, James Conner, Sterling Shepard, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Evan Ingram. And then I used Derrick Henry and the Titans D in the late game as kind of a correlation to use a running back with the defense. Hoping for a low-scoring game. We'll see how it goes. I went a little bit riskier, obviously, stacking more one game. I'm curious to see what Sterling Shepard with the catch already. What the ownership was on Big Ben, if I can find it. I assume he's probably the highest owned quarterback. Yeah, Connor chalk and Saquon chalk, I'm not surprised about at all. Juju coming in at 56% ownership. Steelers D at 34%. So I got Ingram at 35%, Washington 12%, Johnson almost 50%, Sterling Shepard 36%, Connor 69%, Barkley 71%. I made the same lineup. Nice. We're on the same page. I can't really find Big Ben's ownership for some reason, but I assume he is pretty popular. Big Ben, 40% owned. I would say he's probably the highest owned quarterback with Daniel Jones at 20%. So that's basically 60% out of the way. Yeah, so Big Ben's probably is the highest owned quarterback. But all right, guys, I'm gonna head out here. Good luck tonight. Hope you guys all have a nice night, and I will see you guys all later.